Welcome to the Filmmaker Mixer podcast, the podcast by filmmakers for filmmakers.
This episode is sponsored by Gemini Crown Tech, software for all of your production needs. Stay tuned for more information later in the show. Hello, everybody. This is the Filmmaker Mixer podcast, and today we sit down with actor Mickey O'Sullivan to talk about his latest film, Room 6, a chilling psychological thriller that unfolds in a remote motel. Mickey, we're excited to chat with you about you and your career.
Hey, what's up, Jeff? I'm so excited to be here.
Tell me about how you got involved in acting and how you got started. What inspired you to want to be a storyteller and an actor? How did that happen for you?
I kind of was shoved into it as a baby, or rather, I kind of like crawled into it. My brother was, my parents are wonderful people, but they were terrible together. And so my mom took my brother and I out to auditions when we were living in New York City. And so I auditioned for, or my brother was auditioning for As the World Turns, the soap opera. And it was kind of one of those cattle call things where just like baby after baby after
Right.
baby. And my brother went out there, they sat him down on the floor and he started crying. And my mom went to go pick him up. And I crawled out of the stroller and just went right up there. And some casting director was like, good enough, you know?
Oh, wow. It
And
was it
so
was your 42nd Street as a baby.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. So from
Pick
there,
me, pick me.
yeah, I was like, this feels like home. Yeah, great. Oh, yeah, good, cool. It was like a
Excellent.
confirmation that I just belonged in front of other people, and even if I had no idea what I was doing. And then I stopped doing acting probably about 2 years after, about a year after that. Moved to Chicago, played hockey, and then I just, I don't know, I think if you ask most of my mom's friends, I was always a storyteller, but not in the way that you would think. More in like, how can Mickey get out of trouble? Like, what kind of story can he tell? I was kind of obsessed with making faces at myself at the dinner table. I couldn't be sat facing the window because I would just be making faces at myself all dinner, or like kind of like in, I don't know. I think my mom thought it was vanity for a while, but like I wasn't, I don't really feel like I have the greatest image of myself. So for most of my childhood, I was a larger kid and I was teased a lot for it. My brother was a very popular kid, and so I never felt like I really belonged in that. And so I was always kind of building up what story it was that I was going to have a life where like people accepted me and that I felt like I was at home and all of that stuff. I got into when you're not fitting in, you fall in with the crowd that will take you. I got into a bit of trouble, and then found hockey. After hockey, senior year, I hurt my knee, and theater director in high school pulled me aside and said, "If you're not stupid, you do this instead of whatever it is you're doing after
And
school."
where'd you go to high school?
Oak Lawn Community High School. It's
Okay.
southwest side of Chicago.
Yeah.
And then I moved up to Greenfield, Wisconsin to play hockey my junior and part of my senior year. And when I came back to Chicago, Tom Zerzin pulled me aside and was like, I think that you could actually do a pretty good job at this. And I loved it. It was great. I loved the acting portion. I loved the stagecraft portion. I think I played Monsieur DRK in Beauty and the Beast. And I was fascinated that I could take we didn't have a wig, and I was supposed to play this like old, like loony asylum owner, and so I just found cobwebs and I put them underneath my cap, and I was like, "Oh, this is so much fun! Like, how creative!" I felt like I was just building a diorama, and I loved building dioramas growing up, And then I went to school for special education and for theater. I realized very quickly that like it's one or the other, and I picked the one that I was like, oh, I think I'm better at this than the other one. And I'm kind of a workaholic in the sense that I get a lot of joy from figuring like solving problems or
Right.
helping people. And filmmaking is doing both of those things. It's solving problems and helping people. And so that's kind of how I got into acting. And then it's just one job after another after that.
Right, right. Well, I grew up in a little small town down in the Kankakee area, so I'm
Where?
very little town called Ashcombe. If you if you go if you take if you're in Chicago, you go on 57 if you're heading to because you went to ISU, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah, yeah. If you're heading down, well, ISUs might be, I don't know if you take 57 for that. Anyway, you go down all those little towns. I was in one of those little towns along 57 with lots of corn and soybeans. So, some
yeah,
of my
yeah,
friends, I have some friends that went to ISU and U of I and stuff like that. So did ISU, was that an acting a school? You said you went for teaching
yeah.
and
For
acting. Is that what it was?
Yeah, it's special education, teaching, and theater acting, theater studies. I think it was called, or performance studies. And
Gotcha.
I mean, I think I did it the right way in the sense that all I did was take theater classes. I didn't take a. I think I took three gen eds while I was there.
Yeah.
Never graduated. My fourth year, I was a senior. And I went to the guidance counselor and I was like, how much longer would I have to be here to finish my degree properly? And he was like, probably about 4 more years. And I said, okay, I'll see you later.
And so when did you start getting, once you left school?
Yeah.
Um, how did you turn your theater studies into a career? Did you just go back up to Chicago and start auditioning, or how did that happen? No?
No, I was in a great relationship. It was very like with this girl down at ISU. We had like a very intense Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn type relationship. But it was, like we just bickered like crazy. And we split up, and we were living in the same. There was like there's a Shakespeare festival there, and we were living in the same housing unit. But she started dating this guy who lived right next to me, and
Oh wow.
it drove me insane to be that close to like this girl that I loved next to this guy that I, developed a real hatred for. And so I called my dad up who lived in New York and I said, hey, here's the situation. I'm not going to graduate. I would like to move to New York. I can't afford to move to New York. If you have a spare bedroom, I'd love to come out and, take a shot at New York City.
Oh wow.
And he was like, "Yeah, book the train ticket." And so I packed up my stuff. I left like a week later, and I went out there. And on my way out there, I stayed in DC. I had a theater professor who had an old theater company in Washington DC called Taffety Punk, and they were doing this thing called bootleg Shakespeare. I did a lot of Shakespeare in college. I think I wasn't quite. I don't think that anybody had any faith in me as like a former jock doing the thing, and so they would like stick me in the fool role, and I really loved it. I love language and being able to play with that and the freedom it gave me. And so I went out to DC. I did a Taffety Punk bootleg Shakespeare. Essentially, they cast all of these wonderful actors, some Broadway actors, some people doing films and TV all over the country. And everybody gets the script, everybody gets the roles. They show up the morning of, we block it, and then we put it up that night. And it's at the Folger Shakespeare. They sell the damn thing out. There was a fight one night because people couldn't. It was sold out and people were pissed. Like Shakespeare nerds fighting in the parking lot
Wow.
because they couldn't get in. It was really exciting.
I,
And
you
then
know,
I
I'd,
just,
I'd love to see a Shakespeare fight. That sounds kind of
it was
interesting.
great, yeah. Very raucous. Theater people can drink too, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that I think most people don't understand is like theater people can drink. So I got some of my shit together, my like resumes and my online profiles and all that, and I started submitting to different opportunities in New York, and I had an audition the day that I landed there.
Oh
And
wow.
so my thought was like, if I can just hustle harder than anybody else, I'm gonna be fine.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what I did. And so I stayed out there for about a year and a half, and then I got scared that it was after the uh, financial crisis, but we were still kind of dealing with this uncertainty. And somebody reached out to me. I was like, "Aren't you scared?" And I was like, "No." And then I got scared.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. And then I went back to ISU and I failed out. Like I failed all my classes.
Oh wow.
I couldn't do it. I was somebody offered me an opportunity to do a stage reading, and I said I wouldn't do it, and then I did it. I'm just addicted to this stuff,
Yeah.
Jeff. Like if you give me an opportunity, I love acting so much that like it's really hard for me to say no to things.
Well, tell me about Room Six. How did you get involved with that? That's a pretty. That's
So
a that's an intense role. It's a. I love those kinds of movies. That like Identity or
mhm.
oh God, Vacancy. I love those sort of limited location thrillers because they're so much fun. But tell me how you got involved in that.
And it's so gritty too, right? Like you have
Yeah.
such an opportunity to play with color and with art what the DP can do with different shots of a room and putting people in confined spaces.
Yeah, I love
It's
that
so
stuff.
much fun. So I started working with Matt and Mike. Matt and Mike are co-writers and co-directors and producers of the film. We did a film called Carjack as a short film, probably about a year and a half prior, and we worked with this DP named JP O'Rourke, who also shot Room Six,
Right.
and we all just had such a damn good time together. And around that time, I started realizing like it's not necessarily the project for me; it's the people.
Makes sense.
And it's really fortunate when the people also do good work. But we did that thing and we had such a good time. And, afterwards we were on the festival circuit. I couldn't go out to Seattle for one of them, and I had won Best Actor for that project. And they called me while I was in bed. I happened to wake up and they were FaceTiming. I was on a big screen. I was in bed. I was like, what do you want? And we just kept in touch. We went out for one of our producers, Devin, submitted us for the Chicago South Asian Film Festival. And we went there. We had a great time. And that night they were saying like, "Hey, Mick, like we've been writing this thing, and we've been writing it with you in mind. Would you read it?" And I said, "Yeah." And I read it, and I was like, "This is really good. It's a really good story." Um,
But does it have a Shakespearean fight in it? That's the question.
Man, we beat the shit out of each other. No spoilers, but we really go for it in that
Yeah.
film. There's some combat in there. Jack Ball is so damn good, and Sophia is so good, and Dan Waller and Caroline, like everybody who worked on that was so special, and yeah, and so like I think that a lot of filmmakers, especially indie filmmakers, they think that the thing is going to be one thing's going to be their opus, and they put everything on the thing, and then they don't work on the next thing.
Right.
And then there's a lot of disappointment in this industry, right? Like if you have high expectations, it's very easy to get disgruntled and go like, you know what, I'll wait for it to be perfect next time. And before we were even done with the festival circuit, they were like, "Oh, we want to do a feature." And I just wanted so much from my experience. Like this is their Carjack was their first short, and then Room Six is their first feature. They've only done two films, and to be
Wow.
able to produce something of that caliber, not only the result but the experience and the process is really impressive to me. And so as soon as they said that, I kind of was on them. I was like, "Do this."
Yeah.
And maybe even to like my own fault where like I think they just came over. I had my birthday the other day, and they came over, and then we were having a shot of tequila, and they said, "Hey, so we have an interesting pitch for you." And I don't know if I can go into too much detail, but you know, it would be a totally different type of role for you. And I was like, this is so nice that I'm so proud of them for continuing to like be hungry about the next one, because
Right.
this was full of challenges, man. Like we were shooting at a live location. That motel was live,
No kidding.
so we had half the motel, the other half the motel, and all of the people who go to those motels, were there. And we had one shot where I walked from the lobby to the room to where Danny is in the car. And that shot, I think, took it's 23 shots because, cops would show up mid take. Some seedy characters would show up. Somebody would come out yelling at their boyfriend or whatever. Somebody would peek their head through a window or something.
That
So,
is crazy. So this was an actual working hotel out. And where did you shoot? Was this in outside Chicago? Was this in Illinois
yeah, it
or?
was west of Chicago. I think it's called West Chicago.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was an interesting thing because we shot all overnights. Everything we shot there was overnight. So I would leave my place in the city at 4. I would pick up the rest of the cast. We would drive over there, and it was always during traffic going west from Chicago. We get there at like 5:36, and we would
Wow.
work until about 6 a.m. Then I drive everybody home, and we did that. And then we this was during COVID, during the later stages of COVID, and so about three-fourths of the way through, we all got COVID,
Oh,
and
wow.
so production shut down. We were fortunate enough that the motel continued to rent to us. even though we went over our lease. And yeah, like it was not without challenges. But yeah, perseverance and
Well, speaking of challenges, something we talk about on the show a lot are those happy accidents where something comes up, you lose a location, or something happens, an actor gets sick or whatever, and you have to work on the fly to come up with how can we still accomplish this scene. And then the next thing you know, it's like, oh, this is way better than we thought because of this new, you know, uh, wrench that was thrown at us. Did anything like that happen? Any happy accidents like that?
yeah, I think I had a real opinion on how we can shape the story of Red. And the first scene that we walk in, we have a lobby scene. And, I think I came in with this idea that we would grow Red from being very quiet and unassuming to very dominant over all of the other characters. And Matt and Mike were like, what if he's a terrible actor?
Oh, interesting.
Like, what if he comes in and he's being super hokey because he doesn't know how to handle the anxiety of what's actually happening in this circumstance? And it was interesting because the way that I was bringing it was manipulative.
Right.
It was cunning. It was this idea that like I'm a master of my own self and of this situation. And the other is a little bit more human, which is like I'm going to try to put on a mask here, and I'm not very good at putting on a mask. So something's going to be a little bit off about me, but it's not playing a bad guy necessarily. It's just I can't let you know what's going on in my head right now.
Well,
Um,
what's great about that choice actually is it tightens the noose around the character's neck a little more because he's not in control, and it
totally.
makes it much more dangerous for that character. That's kind of interesting. I like that. That's cool.
So there's a lot of stuff like that. I mean, Matt and Mike were great. If you've talked with or you've ever worked with like two directors, you go to one of them for one thing and you go to one of them for another thing. And so anytime I was having trouble like with a part of the scene, like the emotional, like we shot a lot of long takes in that, and I'm used to that. I like to prepare the entire script, so I'm ready to go on day one. We can shoot whatever we want. I can go for 10 pages if we need
Right.
to. And so we shot a lot like that, and there was multiple times where I'd go to Matt and I would go, "Hey, does this make sense in the writing?" Matt was my guy for the writing.
So give me an example. When you say, does this make sense in the writing? Are you saying are you talking about like a character motivation, or what do you mean exactly?
Yeah, so going from lobby to car to inside of the room. There's a lot of stuff in there where it's not filler necessarily. Like in the script, it would be like, great, we're in the bathroom now and we say this here. But when you get on location, things have to change a little bit in terms of like what's on the page versus like, okay, so now we're carrying, her from the car to the room. Are we taking some of the dialogue that should be inside of that motel room and are we
Gotcha.
inserting it here, or are we adding something here to kind of give context? There's a whole scene there where I'm trying to calm Danny down and I'm going to Matt and I'm going, can I have permission to repeat things
Right.
until I get his attention? It's like I want to be respectful to the writer, and I want to give I don't want to introduce things that don't need to be in there.
Right.
And at the same time, I'm going like, my objective here is I need his attention. I need his focus, and I'm willing to do whatever I can do in order to get that. So does it make sense? And then I'm going to Mike and I'm going, does the journey make sense? Like Mike to me, former football player who really has like a sense of like I look at, and I hope they take this the right way, but I look at Matt as being a little bit more of the artistically minded person, and Mike is I'm a normal guy who really understands film, and both of those people are like really integral audience members, right? Like of like a demographic, and I want to know that it works for both of them.
Right.
And so I'm going to one of them for one of my problems. I'm going to the other one for another one of my problems. Um, yeah, so it's fun to work with two people.
Well, what kind of characters are you drawn to? What types of parts do you like?
This was
And and
interesting.
and what kinds of stories?
Yeah. Uh, I think if I'm playing in a comedy, I like to play something that's broad and fun and Probably, like I went to go see The Materialists the other day, and I thought how I was rather disappointed because I really enjoyed Celine Song's Past Lives, but I thought, in a sense, this is what AI can do. It's talking heads. There's not really a big risk. There's not a giant character arc, and I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
I want to be a part of like Nicolas Cage is one of my favorite actors, and I know he takes big swings and they're ridiculous, and but I think that he's really kind of he's a student of cinema, and if you take Nicolas Cage and you combine him with Ben Stiller, like both in comedy and drama. That's what I'm really drawn to. Like you look at Ben Stiller's directorial work, and I just see his sense of humor, not in a funny haha way, but like if you look at Escape at Dannemora, what a conundrum to have these two people who need each other in order to escape, who couldn't be more diametrically opposed in terms of like who they are in their hearts. Um, and then you look at Ben Stiller and Dodgeball, and it's this big swing. It's a voice, it's a posture, it's all of the things that I think like I learned from Shakespeare, which are valid and connected to voice and the whole thing. But then for this was tough for me. I think because I grew up and I was angry. I was angry and I wanted to control things. And for me, like Red is who I am if I never got in touch with like how to self-regulate. And so that's hard because you're like, I don't know, like that's my voice yelling. That's
Right.
I'm hearing it, I'm feeling it, but like you don't if you pretend like you're yelling at somebody convincingly enough, like, you are yelling at them. You are seeing the look on their face, and that's no different than when you go home and you lose your temper and you yell at somebody and they look at you the same way. And so it's not that it's hard to separate as much as it's hard to go like, wow, that is me.
Yeah.
And so it's, obviously like an exaggerated version of me in a terrible circumstance, but I'm interested in having some truth of myself be a part of that, or else I don't know that there's as much value for me. But, I also play a lot of douchebags and a lot of shitty cops, and I know what I look like and I know what I sound like. I just played a character who will have one of the best names in TV history, Shithead Billy. So I'm really excited for that one. But yeah, I like to play shitheads. I like to play the villain. I think that I haven't really, I get the auditions for it a lot, and it'll happen here shortly, I'm sure. But I'm a helper at heart. I'm a mentor to students. I'm a teacher. I'm a friend. If I'm in a comedy, I'm usually playing either the best friend or the idiot buffoon, sometimes both. Um, and but I think that therapists, I think that people who we generally go, oh, they're the helpers, right? Like you look at a bad situation and the people running in, there's a lot of helpers.
Yeah.
And I think that that's next for me. It aligns with who I am a lot more than the herder.
Right. Right. Makes sense. Well, before we wrap up,
Yeah.
tell folks how they can follow your career and see what you're up to next. Are you
Yeah,
like an
so
Instagram person, or how do they track you down?
I am. I'm an Instagram person. My tag is the Mickey O'Sullivan. Mickey like the mouse, Mickey. And I also got a sketch comedy group with my friend James Dawson called Too Shabby Comedy. You can find us on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok. Room Six movie, I believe is the tag, or Room Six film. Um, and yeah, you can check me out on IMDb. You can find me, Mickey O'Sullivan, Chicago. If you're my website's mickeyosullivan.com. If you're looking to be in classes, you can reach out to me, mickeyosullivanworks@gmail.com. I lead classes twice a week for students, for colleagues. I just want to have a space where actors can go and work, where they don't have to worry about whether or not somebody is going to give them or not give them a job after it. There's a lot of like acting workshops that are with gatekeepers, which are a really interesting way to, but like that's usually not when you do your best work.
Right.
You do your best work when you're working on something that's difficult and that you might fail at. And so I like to provide that space.
And are these online classes or are these
I
in-person
like to do it
classes?
in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly have done Zoom. I just got done helping an actor on Zoom, but I think that there's something about being in communion with a bunch of people in the same room. I
Right.
grew up and like my introduction to acting was like, well, there was a place called the Actors Studio, and it wasn't the Actors Studio that we know it from TV, where, what's your favorite word and what's, the James Lipton School of Acting, which is, part of it. But it was a room where a bunch of people got together and there were playwrights and there were actors and directors, and they were all sitting there working on a thing for hours and hours on end. And I'm kind of flabbergasted that doesn't exist as much. And part of it is just the high cost of education. I try to keep my classes super affordable so that a bunch of people can congregate and learn from each other. And then most of the time, I think like they're like, I really like you, you really like me. Let's go do a thing on our own and make some
That's
stuff.
that's the way it happens. That's the way it
Yes,
happens. Well, Mickey, it's been fun chatting with you, and good
great
luck
training
on
too.
Room 6 and all your future projects as well.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
This episode is sponsored by Gemini Crown Tech, owned and operated by Stephanie Moore and Stephanie Harrison. We at Gemini Crown Tech have covered all your production management needs with our proprietary software. Please visit our website at www.geminicrowntech.com and use the code FMP for Filmmaker Mixer podcast listeners, so we know how you heard about us.
Thank you for listening to the Filmmaker Mixer podcast, a podcast created and hosted by filmmakers Jeff Stolen and Andrew Lamping and produced by Melody Lopez.
Our theme song was composed by Stephen D. Bennett.
Make sure to follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us on, and stay tuned for future episodes.